In this tutorial, we're going to be creating the buttons that are used to select different variants of the game and restart the game. And by buttons, I mean this thing that's like in light gray, it says variant 1, and this thing called classic. And again, the flickering is due to some interference between the screen recording and the game. So what I would like you to do is to open up the button object class, go to the top, and we're actually, excuse the notification, going to just implement the class. We're not actually going to add it to the panel yet. That'll be in the next video. First of all, we just need to implement the class. So let's think about a button. What does a button need to do? Well, it needs to know its position in space, its size in space. It needs to know its background color, its foreground color, its text color. It needs to know its font, and that is just about it. And then it needs to be able to tell you whether or not it was clicked on. So you need to declare these fields up top that represent its position and size. And I'm going to make these increasingly general because I think you can do it. It needs to know the text that should be displayed, so it needs to have a string called text. It needs to know its background color and text color, and it needs to know its font. And if you are unfamiliar with working with fonts, that's fine, just ask me. We've used them a couple times in the past, so I think you're mostly familiar with them. Then it's going to have two constructors. The first constructor is going to be a little bit more general, and the second constructor is going to be a little bit more specific when people who are using this object want to give it specific characteristics. So in this first constructor, and in both constructors in fact, if information is passed over in the constructor, you must store it in some sort of field and make use of it. Beyond that, though, beyond these three parameters, x, y, and string text, you need to give it some default values. That can be the width and the height, and the colors, and the font, and that's about it. Same thing goes in this one, it's just that more information is being sent over. So not only is there an x and a y position and a text string that someone who uses this button will want to be displayed, but there is a background color and a text color. So you must, to reiterate, store whatever information is sent over in these parameters in the object fields. After completing both constructors, you should implement the draw method. So you should, set the conditions of G that is passed over, set those to a certain, to whatever your fields are, colors and whatever, and draw it in order so that it resembles my buttons that I showed you in the first video. The final method is probably the most difficult. It involves parameter checking, or like checking for bounds. So the point of this isClicked method is that it will be used by the game panel class, and whenever the mouse is clicked, it will send over, if the buttons are active, it will send over the information to the buttons. And the buttons, it'll send over the mouse's X and Y position relative to the panel. And the buttons then will be asked to check whether or not they got clicked on. And they do that with just is the mouse X inside my X position, inside me horizontally? And if so, is the mouse Y position also inside my bounds, or vertically? And if so, then it should return true, because this is a method that returns a Boolean value. And if it's not, if I didn't get clicked on, I would return false. And this is very much like the inheritance to isSelected method. It's just called isClicked. Okay, so your job is to implement the button class, and in the next video we're going to actually add it to the panel.